Alright everyone, depending on whether you talk to Beijing Biden or Beijing Biden's White House, we either do or don't have a border crisis in what might be the most confusing and strange and possibly concerning moment in the asterisk administration so far. And keep in mind, Biden's entire 3 months that he's been in office now, roughly, have been one long wash. And they have been bizarre from start to finish. Nothing makes sense. The country is being governed into the ground, and he has already basically failed. Like, they have to do 20, 30-point oversampled push polls to have his approval above water. Keeping this in mind, this might be the most strange thing that's happened so far. Link in the description. Archived, of course. It's definitely time for your morning or late night chuckle, depending on your time zone. First and foremost, though, there will be a pinned comment if you're watching this video on YouTube with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I make 2 videos a day on those sites that I don't put on YouTube because they're either verboten topics or simply because of overflow of topics, because YouTube will algorithmically demote you even more than normal if you make more than like 1 or 2 videos each day. I don't know why they don't want you to be a workhorse. They want priority creators that make 2 videos a week to be in good standing. They don't want other people to outcompete them by simply doing more content and being more talented and interesting. And that's not hard when the competitors are CNN or Vox, just so that we're aware. It's Schrodinger's border crisis because Biden, the other day, came out and said, when asked about the border crisis, he used the term border crisis to describe it. So, well, man, we're working on it, some ideas. We're doing the best we can. Basically, I mean, it always boils down to Orange Man bad. Somehow it's Trump's fault, despite the fact that the border was doing fine under the Trump administration. Somehow, though, it's his fault, so it will take a little bit more time. I find it funny every time you talk about the border crisis being a disaster, like on echo chamber left-wing Twitter. People say, well, it takes time to solve all the problems Trump left behind. There was no problem under Trump, certainly not with the border. You cannot, in good faith, make that particular argument. It makes the opposite of sense. Biden is the cause of this problem. Biden came out essentially during the primaries and insinuated that if people came illegally, they'd never have to leave, and they would eventually become lawful residents. This is now, in the legislative sense, virtually impossible, and they are being used as slave labor. Now, then Jen Psaki in the White House come out and put out a presser. Biden's comments do not necessarily reflect the views of the White House. And I'm thinking to myself, whose views other than the President of the United States could the White House's views be represented by? Like if the President of the United States' own opinion and verbal meanderings don't represent the official executive statement of the United States, then whose does? Kamala Harris? Jen Psaki? Michael Bloomberg, the cabal of billionaires that control Beijing Biden like a fucking puppet? Well, that's the real answer, of course. Biden cannot be counted on to stay to his notes. Even when he's got a teleprompter, he has verbal problems. And it's not a stutter. Anyone who still thinks that it's because he has a stutter and he suppresses it, so sometimes he says weird shit, that it doesn't cause you to refer to the border crisis, which you have disavowed as being a crisis at all, as a border crisis. It certainly doesn't cause the White House to come out and countermand the President of the United States. Do you realize how bizarre that is? The optics of this, I mean, the fact that this isn't front page news from stem to stern is almost astonishing. It shows that we have a corrupt state-run media. It no longer functions. We no longer have a free press when we're talking about CNN or MSNBC and all of these groups. What you have instead is a president that's not a president. He's a steward. And I came out and said that before he was even the nominee, that if he's in there, he's a steward. It's not, by the way. Some people think Kamala runs the show and he's a Trojan horse to get the first female president of color. No, these people are all opportunists. They don't care about her color or what genitals she has or any of that nonsense. Kamala wouldn't be running the show either. The people running the show are a bunch of warmongers and billionaires and corporate multinational crooks. Those are the people running the United States government by and large at the moment. They are in league with the MSM spewing out propaganda. They are in league with big tech, bigwigs, to try to suppress dissidents, to certainly try to suppress populism, to suppress any mention of libertarianism, because they're terrified of these things. They're afraid that people will demand more of the pie that they themselves are baking, and that the 1%ers will have to actually, pay some taxes or something. By the way, it's bizarre how some people think that's like a left-wing statement. No, if you're going to have a tax code at all, it should be actually balanced. Right now, the middle class and the entrepreneurs are the ones propping the country up. Now, sure, there'd be offshoring, but there already is, so I fail to see exactly how that's the responsibility of changes in the tax code. We've got a corrupt system, and we're currently led, or misled, I would say, by a man with dementia. Joe Biden has Alzheimer's disease. That's why he does things like this. I guarantee his staff and all of the other people who prep him each day, that put on his socks and feed him his bran muffin, liquefied through a fucking funnel with some adult nutrient shake or something. I guarantee these people tell him multiple times a day, now, Joe, remember, don't answer any questions. Not a single one. Just grin and turn around and shake somebody's hand. Don't take questions. Don't do anything in and of your own accord. They probably have conned the poor dude, because he's demented and therefore maybe more gullible. They've probably conned him into thinking that there actually is some sort of massive conspiracy against him and his administration. Like, oh, Mr. President, you shouldn't answer any questions because there might be Russians there that will hardball you and try to make you look stupid. So just be quiet as much as possible and let Jen Psaki handle everything, or Kamala Harris. That's what's happening. When the president's own statements don't reflect the will or the opinions of the White House, don't you think that's kind of obvious? That they're saying that this dude isn't even in charge of anything? It certainly seems to be the case. Again, if the president comes out and says, I would like to, raise taxes on the third income bracket, and the White House comes out and says, well, that's not actually what we want to do, you should be going ballistic over that. The president is being countermanded by his own White House. At the very least, this is basically a de facto vote of no confidence in Beijing Biden by his own cabinet, by his own staff, by his own White House spokeswoman. The opinions of the president do not necessarily indicate the opinions of the executive branch of the United States. Well, then whose do? The fact is that it's the cabal that controls him, but the thing is, normally it's not that obvious, because normally the person in charge doesn't have Alzheimer's disease and doesn't deviate from what you want people to ingest as the actual opinions. They're very carefully tailoring an image at the southern border. And this is part led by the far left, like the AOC sorts. They are very carefully avoiding people believing that there's an actual problem there. The fact is that it's like when AOC says, well, it's not a crisis because these people aren't a crisis, they're just refugees. Well, nobody's saying that the people are the problem. See, there's the straw man argument. You're essentially setting up a straw man as though people that think that the border should be protected, that they just dislike the brown people are saying. No, we're saying that you've got overflow facilities upon overflow facilities. The Biden administration was completely out of its depth. They have completely screwed up the border. There is no control there whatsoever. There's no attempt to stop human trafficking. There's no attempt to enforce the law. There's no capability of controlling the situation. You've got, how many tens of thousands of people right now are camped across the border waiting for the opportunity to charge over it? How many times are they going to be able to increase just that one facility in Donna for undocumented migrant children? It's a temporary holding facility for undocumented children, unaccompanied minors. It's not a concentration camp for illegals that came over here with human traffickers. We've got these kids in a facility. It's not kids in cages anymore. See, we removed the steel bars that were there, or the fencing, and put up plexiglass plating. That's totally different, everyone. It's not a cage anymore because there's no metal involved, because of COVID. Yeah, it's 1,600% over capacity, but it's not actually over capacity. It's just that this facility is so nice, it's really, really popular. See, the problem is they're using propaganda to try to carefully tailor an image of there being no problem here for political reasons. Because they want to admit these people so they can be basically modern-day serfs. They want them to be like servants. They're never going to get residency. When Biden says, well, I'm going to work on an 8-year path to citizenship for the DACA recipients, you can work on it till the cows come home. It'll be just like you spending over $1 billion on groups to study gun violence that at the end of the day won't actually inform any meaningful policy changes because you're not in control of things and you don't have the votes in the Senate. And Joe Manchin, the one-man army standing in the way of the worst aspects of the administration, is about the funniest thing ever. The Republicans are too cowardly and too weak to stop Beijing Biden. It takes a fucking Democrat to do it. The administration has completely failed. 3 months in, the Biden administration is an abysmal failure on literally every level. Attacking the energy industry, failing on diplomacy. Just look at, the fiasco that was his first meeting with the Japanese PM the other day. The border crisis. Everything under the sun. Literally everything that can go wrong is going wrong. And they keep trying to blame Trump. Well, he left us a lot of problems to deal with. You created the problems that had been solved by Trump. It's just that the MSM wouldn't allow people to admit to it and called them racists if they supported an administration that for the first time since first-term Reagan, before he too became a fucking nut with Alzheimer's, actually did something meaningful to change things. But Biden's not. He's just sitting there in his basement hiding from the world. They're hiding him. Again, they probably have conned him into believing that if he answers questions, Russian propagandists are going to get him. The commies will get you, Joe. So just, stay in the White House. Go golfing today. Make sure if the press shows up on the green, you just keep putting away. Don't talk to them at all. That's about all. Peace out.